is a spiritual deity. Freedom and liberty and justice shall fight for you. When you fight for freedom with all your soul, take it from me. This is Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB, the voice of the nation, the voice.
And here is a special announcement from the leadership of Biafra government in exile. This is BCB.
Let me start by paying respect and remembering all our veterans, both those in the homeland and those in diaspora. Also, to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice, who laid down their lives during the war, defending our great land. And those who were cut down in bloody circumstances during the pogroms in the north. And those who have died in this present day struggle. We pray that their souls will continue to rest in peace. Above all, we remember our leader, Emeka Odumegwu Ojukwu, who showed courage and fortitude in the years of 1966, demonstrated brilliant leadership and a selfless devotion to his people in the hard times to 1970, and bore the lonely and often impoverished years of exile with quiet dignity, refusing to respond to the many lies that were printed and broadcast about him. He was the best of the best, and we pray that his soul will continue to rest in peace. It is very difficult to find where to begin, given the pace of events in the homeland. I have no doubt in my mind that Nigeria is at the point of no return. There is absolutely no conceivable way Nigeria as it is today will be able to step back from the edge of the cliff. Nigeria is a country that has failed by every conceivable indices. For me, Nigeria failed about 67 years ago under President Buhari. The final nail in the Nigeria coffin is the coming to power of Ahmed Bola Tinubu. This was possible because all the institutions, including the Supreme Court, that provide firm foundation for viable countries, have all collapsed. They were all compromised in one way or the other, taken over by groups of criminals and brigands in the name of politicians. It is important that we all understand the times that we are in relation to our struggle for the independent state of Biafra. Everyone, whether you are at home or you are in diaspora, you must understand the urgency of now. As Nigeria disintegrates, we can see clearly the path to freedom and liberty. A negotiated separation, devoid of violence and bloodshed. That is the path we must follow. And this will be to the interest of all indigenous peoples in all the regions who have been suffering unimaginable hardship and underdevelopment under an unfair, unequal, and increasingly corrupt contraption called Nigeria. The fact that the British failed desperately to decolonize Nigeria in the right way, but rather chose to maintain the same colonial institutions, whilst manipulating political power and population figures in favor of the northern Nigeria, who they found subservient in order to maintain control by proxy, to ensure that the new nation was always going to be established on the wrong footing. The evidence didn't take long to manifest. In January 1966, for those that know their history, and we must know our history, because if we don't know where we're coming from, it's difficult for us to know where we're going. So we must know. In January 1966, a bloody coup took place, and a counter-coup followed in July the same year, leading to the waves of pogroms, massacres that claimed the lives of over tens of thousands of Biafrans in northern Nigeria. More gruesome is the killing in cold blood of Igbos, especially Biafra officers in various army formations in the north and in Lagos. After General Aguiyi, the head of state, was brutally murdered along with his host, General Fajuyi, in Ibadan. Nigeria and her corrupt government, run by a bunch of criminals and drug lords, all across the various arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, want to drag us all and other indigenous peoples down with them. They allocate billions to themselves. We can all see what they've done even in their last budget. They allocate all these billions to purchase vehicles, to renovate houses, to build new houses for themselves and for their holidays, while millions of ordinary citizens live in abject poverty and suffering. Cost of basic food rising by over 500%, kidnapping, banditry, terrorists having a field day on our highways and in our farms, killing a lot of people, especially Christians, as government officials, particularly President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, jetting off abroad on private trips, while people die of hunger and are kidnapped and killed in their farms and in the communities. This insensitivity and ineptitude are simply mind-blowing. These are the last days of a drowning British contraption. 8 years of Buhari was dreadful and damaging. Tinubu, using his ill-gotten wealth from public funds and illicit drug deals, was determined to grab power and run with it. So he went about bribing and buying all the institutions, the Supreme Court, the INEC, taking over the central bank to ensure his election promise of "it is my turn" is fulfilled. The people watched helplessly, I must say, as their hopes were flushed down the drains, Then came the final song, the Nunc Dimittis, the final nail in the Nigerian coffin. Petrol up to 166 naira a litre. Diesel up to 1,230 a litre. A bag of rice is now over 70,000 naira. A bag of cement is over 10,000 naira. The naira is trading at 1,550 to the dollar and 1,987 to the pound. The end of this evil contraption is indeed near. The sufferings being experienced by millions of ordinary people up and down the country has reached unimaginable proportions. The people have no other option but to stand up and fight back. This British contraption must be decoupled. It must be torn apart, ripped apart, so that the indigenous nations will be released and set free. They were forcefully coupled together by the colonial administration of Lord Lugard in his evil amalgamation of the North and the South in 1914. This amalgamation, as we all know, has now expired because it's over 100 years. Expired in 2014. Our position in Biafra government in exile could not be clearer and more justified. To survive as a people and to achieve our God-given potentials, Biafra must exit from Nigeria and be a separate independent nation. If you have not realized this fact, then you must have seen it now with the events and the situations in Nigeria. It must be as clear as daylight that the only thing that is available now is for the indigenous nationalities to go their separate ways. Whether it is in a restructure back to the 1963 constitution or whatever, setting the regions free, making the regions independent, or a straightforward separation. And those who want to be free from the contraption can negotiate their way out. And Biafra certainly is in the process of working out modalities to negotiate out of Nigeria. A peaceful separation will favor all parties. There is no need to fight. There is no need to be violent. A peaceful separation. And this would allow both countries, or even 2 or 3 or 4 other countries, to live side by side with each other in peace. There are examples in history of countries that split up peacefully and gone their separate ways. They've gone on to prosper and enjoy peaceful relations. USA separated from the UK. Belgium separated from Netherlands. Singapore went their separate way from Malaysia. Pakistan and Bangladesh split from India. East Timor separated from Indonesia. Ireland separated from the United Kingdom in 1921. Iceland and Denmark chose to go their separate ways in 1944. Norway and Sweden did the same earlier in 1901. Peaceful separations, not wars, can be beneficial to all parties. It is a decision to opt out and seek a different path it doesn't necessarily mean confrontation or war. A peaceful separation can create healthy competition between the new countries and cause a surge in growth and development. And it can only benefit its people. Solving crises like ethnicity crisis, religious crisis, and many others. This action requires courage. It requires honesty and determination. It is clear, even from the last presidential elections, that Nigeria does not want Biafrans, especially in the Igbo. And so a peaceful separation becomes necessary, becomes an option. And so when we call for the independent state of Biafra, we are not calling for war. We are not calling for violence. We hope and wish that those on the other side will understand the need for negotiation so that we can peacefully separate and build our own nation. And you can see in the last election, the blatant perversion of justice to deny Peter the election that he clearly won. Is one evidence to show that Biafra and Ndibo do not belong in Nigeria. And therefore, a peaceful separation will be required. There are many other injustices, marginalizations in both the civil service and in the armed forces. Allocation of resources, lack of infrastructural development in the southeast, especially seaports and international airports and roads, appointments, the dodgy quota systems, unjust cut-off systems that make it almost impossible for Igbos to gain admission into higher educational institutions all across Nigeria. The list goes on and on. One of Biafra's greatest potential is in science and technology, innovation, production, and in the creative industry. It has become particularly impossible for Eastern Nigeria, Biafra land, to grow in these industries since the war ended in 1970. The Biafra research and production achieved unbelievable things during the war to support the war effort as well as to support the civil population. We are capable of even much more in this era. Again, in the late 50s and early 60s, the industrial plan of Eastern region under Dr. Michael Okpala was so successful that Eastern region was growing faster than China, than Singapore, than Malaysia, than many other countries that we see doing so well now. But the coup of 66 and eventually the war brought everything to an end. And despite the no victor, no vanquished announced after the war, and despite also the policy of the 3 hours of reconciliation, rehabilitation, and reconstruction, none of those research projects and economic plans were retained and continued in order to rehabilitate Eastern Nigeria, Biafra land. Till date, Biafra land is still treated as a conquered territory. When you go home, you see the amount of military and police checkpoints in Biafra land, and this is absolutely unacceptable. We cannot allow it to go on. We must continue to call it out and tell the Nigerian authorities to withdraw all those checkpoints. It is nothing but official robbery from the population of Biafrans. You can see in broad daylight as armed officers extort money from motorists, poor drivers trying to make a living. In broad daylight, they're not even hiding it. They collect money, causing long unnecessary traffic jam on the highways and the link roads, increasing the suffering of people, terrorizing, intimidating ordinary citizens who are trying their level best to survive under an extremely punishing environment. It is time we all wake up and see the handwriting on the wall, which in fairness has been there all this while. Whether you are at home or you are in exile overseas, you can no longer afford to remain inactive. I urge you to find a way to take active part in Biafran Restoration Program, because the penny has dropped. BGIE is conducting this process through a peaceful and diplomatic means. There is no place for violence in this struggle. This fight is a fight of the mind and the brains. It's no longer a fight of guns and bullets. It's a fight where we demonstrate that we are more than capable of building a great nation of our own. A just and equitable nation where every one of us is safe and secure and able to achieve whatever we want to achieve without being discriminated against or limited by corruption, mismanagement, religion, ethnicity, or insecurity. If you are listening to this message, it's time for you to make a decision to support the struggle in any way that you can, intellectually, financially, and otherwise. If you are a young Biafran and being misled into violent activities, I want to ask you to think again and change your ways. Violence will never be the solution to our problem. Violence cannot get us Biafra under the present circumstance. Many have already died, and I tell you, no one else needs to die. We have a process that will achieve our objective. That process will include legal, diplomatic, and democratic principles, peaceful negotiations, and persuasions. I promise you that this process will work, and the greatest beneficiaries will be you, the young Biafrans, and generations to come. I want you to trust me and trust BGIE and others that are in this process. And I want to tell you that God is working his purpose out as years succeeds to years. And nearer draws that time, the time that we know that must surely be. That day, that time will be a day of freedom and liberty. And this is our dream, and this is our hope. And God bless you. And may God bless our nation, Biafra.
The more we fight together, 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 the more we fight together, and stronger we shall be. The more we fight together, 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 the more we fight together, and stronger we shall be.
Rising soul, hey, rising soul. Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Biafra of Africa. Believe it or leave it, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. We've been crying, the world claim not to hear. And we've been lamenting, the world claim not to hear. Our tears flow, the world claim not to see. And our blood flow, the world claim not to see. This is a crime, oh no, against humanity. Oh no, yeah, this is a crime. Eritrea spoke up, they were given independence. South Sudan spoke, they were given independence. Namibia spoke up, they were given independence. Give me the reason my people got to be neglected. Give me the reason my people got to be rejected. Give me the reason our freedom got to be a crime. Give me the reason our own freedom got to be denied. Hey, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. I tell you what, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Hey, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Believe it or leave it. Oh no. Whoa.
This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, bringing you the news headlines for the week. In the news this week, Enugu government clears the air on plan to establish Ruga settlement. IPOB warns Southeast governors against establishing cattle ranches. NLC declares 2-day national protest over hardships, signed pacts. Stay tuned for the details coming up shortly. From Politics Nigeria, Enugu government clears the air on plan to establish Ruga settlements. The Enugu state government has reacted to claims that it plans to establish a Ruga settlement in Uzowani, local government area of the state. Ruga refers to the settlement of animals by farmers in an organized place with the provision of necessary amenities such as pasture and water. Recall that the residents of Nimbo community protested against the state government's plan to establish Ruga in the community for herdsmen after herders had invaded and killed 40 people in the community. However, the state government, in a statement on Saturday, confirmed that it was planning to establish modern ranches as part of its agro-industrial productivity agenda to turn the state's dormant assets into productive assets, as well as further stem the activities of kidnappers and other criminals who masquerade as herders. The government said it had no plans to cede any part of the state lands to herders in the name of Ruga or whatever name called. The Commissioner for Information, Ake Ezeaka, who signed the statement, described the reports and videos of a few individuals purportedly protesting government's alleged plans to set up Ruga at Nimbo in Uzowani local government as a handiwork of manipulators and political losers who want to run the administration down for political gains. The statement titled "Ranch is not Ruga" reads, The attention of the government has been drawn to insinuations and utter misrepresentation by some individuals of the good initiative of government to use ranch to further stem the tide of kidnapping and clashes between our border peoples and herders. Enugu State government is not engaging in any Ruga project in any part of the state and shall not do so. Ranch is not Ruga. It has become necessary to explain matters regarding the design to use ranching, a modern method over the world to rear cattle. The recent viral messages and outcry of a few persons against what they construed as government intention to take over a portion of land in Uzowani local government and give out to Fulanis in the guise of Ruga is but unfortunate machinations of those who wish to make a mountain out of a molehill for political reasons. The intention is the intention of government is clear on the matter. Armed bandits and kidnappers in the name of herders have for long taken advantage of our forests and farmlands to commit heinous crimes, abductions, rape and killings. The government of Enugu State has resolved to put a stop to these and introduce ranching, the most modern way of rearing cattle. From the Nation Online, IPOB warns Southeast governors against establishing cattle ranches. Indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, has warned Southeast governors, particularly Enugu State Governor Peter Mbah, not to establish Fulani cattle ranches in any part of the region. It said any attempt to establish ranches at Nimbo in Uzowani community of Enugu State or any part of the southeast would be resisted. IPOB urged the governors to shun establishment of cattle ranches in any state in the southeast. The group said yesterday in a statement by its media and publicity secretary, Ima Powerful, IPOB and ESN operatives won't allow establishment of Fulani camps in the name of cattle ranches in any state of the southeast. IPOB is monitoring the governors, especially Peter Mbah of Enugu State. They should know IPOB will not allow the establishment of any murderous camps in the name of cattle ranches in Enugu or anywhere in the southeast. From the Vanguard, NLC declares 2-day national protest over hardship. The Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, on Friday directed its members and affiliate unions to begin mobilization for 2-day national protest, expected to take place on February the 27th and the 28th if the federal government failed to implement all agreements signed with it in October 2023. The 2-day national protest will take place at the expiration of the 14-day ultimatum it had earlier issued. The president of the NLC, who addressed newsmen at the end of the union's National Executive Council meeting in Abuja, asked his members to be on standby for an indefinite strike, which would commence 7 days after the nationwide protests if the government still fails to meet its demand. Ajero, who noted that Labour was no longer interested in empty talks from the governments but in actions, urged the government to immediately implement the agreement and restore faith in the democratic process as Nigerians were struggling to survive. That brings an end to the news of the week. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, saying thank you for listening. and goodbye, friends.
Thank you for listening to us today. Join us next time for news, cultural, and educational programs. This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.
Hail to Biafra, consecrated nation. O Fatherland, this people's holy pledge. Defending thee shall be our dedication. Spilling our blood will count our privilege. The waving stands and reachable lids of free shall always be our flag of liberty. We shall emerge triumphant from this ordeal, and through the crucible unscathed we'll pass. When we are poised, the wounds of battle to heal, we shall remember those who died in mass. Then shall our trumpets peal the glorious song of victory. We score, oh my wrong. Oh God, protect us from the heathen pitfall. Guide all our movements, lest we go astray. Give us the strength